Miles Axe Copeland, Jr. was an American musician, businessman, and CIA officer who was closely involved in major foreign policy operations from the 1950s to the 1980s. Background and family life. Copeland was born in Birmingham, Alabama, the son of a doctor. He did not graduate from college. There is nothing in Copeland's CIA files to suggest he was ever a professional musician, but several relatives and friends have testified to his musical ability. Copeland's books contain several impressive statements about his days as a jazz musician, including that he spent a week playing fourth trumpet in the Glenn Miller Orchestra, although this claim has been discredited. Copeland was married to archaeologist Lorraine Copeland and was the father of music manager Miles Copeland III, booking agent Ian Copeland, writer, film producer Lorraine Copeland, and composer Stuart Copeland, best known as the drummer for The Police. Career. CIA founding. At the outbreak of World War II, Copeland joined the National Guard and contacted Wahida John Sparkman of Alabama, who arranged a meeting with William Wild Bill Donovan. The two hit it off immediately, but Copeland nonetheless was not recruited to Donovan's Office of Strategic Services, and instead joined the Corps of Intelligence Police, which became the Counterintelligence Corps in January 1942. Copeland was stationed in London and reportedly gained the top-secret brigade clearance, and took part in discussions about Operation Overlord, after the conversion of the OSS into the Strategic Services Unit on 1 October 1945. Copeland joined what would become part of the Central Intelligence Agency. Serving in London, he became a lifelong Anglophile and married Lorraine Adey, a Scot he had met during the war when she was serving in the Special Operations Executive. CIA career. Among Copeland's first postings was Damascus, Syria, beginning a long career in the Middle East. Together with Stephen Meade, he played a role in supporting the March 1949 Syrian coup d'etat, working closely with Archibald Roosevelt and his nephew Kermit Roosevelt, Jr. He was instrumental in arranging Operation Ajax, a 1953 technical coup d'etat against the Prime Minister of Iran, Mohammad Mossadegh. In 1953, Copeland returned to private life at the consulting firm Booz Allen Hamilton, while remaining a non-official cover operative for the CIA. He traveled to Cairo to meet Gamal Abdel Nasser, who had overthrown King Farouk and taken power in Egypt, advising Nasser on the development of the Mukhabarat and becoming Nasser's closest Western advisor. In this role he offered U.S. economic development and technical military assistance. At the time, the U.S. considered regional instability adverse to U.S. interests. The new post-war era witnessed an intensive involvement of the United States in the political and economic affairs of the Middle East, in contrast to the hands-off attitude characteristic of the pre-war period. The United States had to face and define its policy in all three sectors that provided the root causes of American interests in the region: the Soviet threat, the birth of Israel, and petroleum. In 1955, Copeland returned to the CIA during the Suez Crisis, in which the United States blocked the collusion of France, the United Kingdom and Israel to invade. The U.S. backed Egypt's independence and control of the Suez Canal. The move is said to have been advocated by Copeland with the goal of ending British control of the region's oil resources, and forestalling the influence of the Soviet Union opinion on regional governments by placing the U.S. behind the legitimate national interests. After the crisis, NASA, nevertheless, moved closer to the USSR and accepted massive military technology and engineering assistance on the Aswan Dam. Copeland, allied with John and Allen Dulles, worked to reverse this trend at the time, which included Copeland's involvement in schemes to assassinate NASA. In 1958, Syria merged with Egypt in the United Arab Republic and King Faisal II was deposed by Iraqi nationalists. Copeland opposed major paramilitary CIA operations such as the failed Bay of Pigs invasion of Cuba in 1961, on the grounds that they were impossible to keep secret due to size. From 1957 to 1968, Copeland was stationed with his family in Beirut, where his children grew up attending the American Community School. Retirement. After retirement from the CIA, Copeland wrote foreign policy books and an autobiography, and articles for publications including National Review. He was active in 1970s political efforts to defend the CIA against critics including the Church Committee. In 1988, Copeland wrote an article titled "Spooks for Bush," which asserted that the intelligence community overwhelmingly supported George H.W. Bush for U.S. President. Bush had run the CIA during the 1970s under Gerald Ford. In the introduction to his book, Enemy Within, Guardian newspaper journalist CMS Milne wrote that in the spring of 1990, Copeland warned British miners' union leaders Arthur Scargill and Peter Heathfield that the CIA and MI5 had been involved in kickstarting a media campaign against them and helped to frame corrupt allegations against them. Also in retirement he created the board game, Game of Nations. Books. The Game of Nations, The Amorality of Power Politics, New York, Simon and Amp, Schuster, 1970. Without Cloak and Dagger, The Truth About the New Espionage, New York, Simon and Amp, Schuster, 1974. Beyond Cloak and Dagger, Inside the CIA, New York, Pinnacle Books, 1975. Real Spy World, London, Sphere, 1978. The Game Player, Confessions of the CIA's Original Political Operative, London.